Hi, this is Theo, and you're listening to Between Two Trains, a bi-monthly business podcast where we interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the North DeKalb area. Today, your co-hosts are Van Pappas of Oxygen Financial and Jason Wheelock of Wheelock Realty. And now, Between Two Trains.
Okay, welcome to Between Two Trains, a podcast in Chamblee, Georgia, where we interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the North DeKalb area. We are in the plush studios of the Chamblee Chamber of Commerce in downtown Chamblee. If you have not come to Chamblee recently, you need to. There's a lot of great stuff going on. As always, my co-host Jason Wheelock is with me, and we've got a great guest. The CEO of Translation Station is going to be with us. And Jason, so how are you today?
I'm good, man. I had a really great month of May. It's been a couple weeks.
Real estate is hot, huh?
Real estate's hot, and had a cool trip to South America. Hiked Machu Picchu.
You did?
2 weeks ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll tell you everything.
All right.
And then I had a bad cold over Memorial Day. So, but I'm refreshed, ready for a good podcast.
Great. Well, as always, we start off our show by doing a little entrepreneur talk. And this week, we are going to talk about women entrepreneurs in Chamblee. And Jason, I want to change it up a little. Our guest, Lindsey Cambardella, is a woman entrepreneur. So I'm going to invite her to come into this segment and talk about women entrepreneur. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, I've noticed over the years of being in Chamblee, having started the Chamblee Chamber of Commerce, that we have a lot of women who own businesses right here in Chamblee. And I recently went to City Hall to find out if they had any statistics on the number of businesses. We have close to 2,000 businesses in Chamblee. How many were owned or run by women? Unfortunately, they do not ask the gender question on the business application, so they did not have that data for me. But Lindsey, you have started a group here called, I believe, The Village.
That's right.
And this is a group of women entrepreneurs in the area, correct?
Yeah, we say women business owners and leaders.
Okay.
So it's not all owners, but those who might function like an owner also.
Sure. So what caused you to start this? I mean, why, did you see something in the marketplace? Because I've noticed from our guests coming on Between Two Trains, we seem to have a lot of women owners coming onto the show. And so was there something you saw in the area, or is this just something you said, hey, I'd like to check out?
Sure. So my background is actually as an attorney, and about a year and a half ago, I made the decision to transition from law into business. And at the time, I was living here in Chamblee, and I wanted to surround myself with other women that were in the same situation, either had started a business or were planning to start a business, just where we could bounce ideas off and have a shared sense of interest, because I don't have friends who are business owners. And so I needed to look outside of my own personal circle to find that. And I didn't really want to be going downtown Atlanta or Midtown to find that. So I actually posted on nextdoor.com, and I said, does anyone know of a group for women like this in the area? And everyone's comments, I think I got 50 or 60 comments, and they all said, no, I don't, but I'm interested if you start one. So I kind of, from there, just said, I guess I got to do this. And that's how it started. That was last April, I believe, 2017.
So it's been going on a year now, and you're up to how many?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 85.
Okay.
Wow.
Members.
That's incredible. 85 women leaders or business owners. And now, is it strictly just for Chamblee, or do they come outside of the Chamblee area? So our podcast is obviously for North DeKalb. What's the group?
Sure. We say Chamblee, Brookhaven, and nearby. So we've got some from Dunwoody, some from Dorville, and a few perhaps who are outside those boundaries, but we haven't limited it in any significant way.
What was the inspiration that brought you from law to going into business? It's a big transition, right?
Yeah, it is a big transition. I worked at two small firms during my 5 years as a lawyer, and began to be interested in the business side of owning a small practice. And also my husband and his family, they're all entrepreneurs. And so we did a lot of reading about business and talking about it and brainstorming ideas. You know, my favorite hobby is probably talking about business. And so I just began to get frustrated with the business side of owning a law firm, and I thought that there were more opportunities in other service industries or even a product industry. And so I decided to take my legal experience and training with me along into the business world. And I'm so grateful for the legal training, but I'm also glad to be out of the practice of law.
Now, as I said a second ago, I went to the city hall and asked them what data they had, and they didn't seem to have that. Do you feel like this is something we as a community need to get our government around promoting, these business leaders who are women? There was, as Jason, you may not know this, Lindsey was recently quoted in a Huffington Post article talking about this subject, correct? Is that right?
That's right.
So it turns out that Chamblee is one of like 6 or 7 municipalities in the entire country where women actually make more money than men.
Yes, that was an interesting statistic for sure, and it was an interesting project to be involved with. And I think the data is complicated at best. I think a lot of it has to do with the diversity of the community. So it's not as clear cut, I don't think, as women here are making more than men. I think it's a complicated figure, but I did appreciate that it drew attention to women business owners and leaders in our community, and do think that it's important for our community to support its women, all of its business owners, of course, but we are operating at a disadvantage, one that has a long history. And, one thing just popped in my head, which is I can't tell you how many times during my time as a lawyer that I was mistaken for the receptionist. And these are things that I don't think people mean to have a negative view. It's just ingrained in us from many, many centuries of history. And we're just working to move past that and to move past some of those stereotypes and really support each other, which is where the village comes from.
I thought this was really interesting, Van. You mentioned this before the show briefly. It caught me off guard that there would be only 6 municipalities in the United States that meet that. And coming from real estate, it's sometimes easy to forget that something like that's possible because there's so many successful women in real estate. If you go into most real estate offices in 2018, there's probably more women that are producing at a high level in my industry. So it really took me off guard, and I was wondering if possibly it's attributed to the fact that Chamblee is a progressive environment, but it also is kind of suburban, and many suburbs are very traditional. You go out to East Cobb, Alpharetta, maybe nothing against those locations, but more traditional roles potentially with families. So more women that are entrepreneurs are drawn potentially to this environment. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I think that's probably a factor, along with the differences in the community as far as diversity goes and the different numbers that those populations are going to bring in. But yeah, I do think this community pulls in a different type of person.
Well, as a financial planner, I agree with you. Numbers, it's easy to make them say what you want.
Exactly.
But I believe that part of what is driving that number for Chamblee, and the diversity might come into play, I don't know, but knowing a lot of these business owners here in the community that are women, I've gotten to know how they run their business and why they started their business here. A lot of them live here, so it's very convenient. They don't want to have to drive somewhere else, especially if they're mothers and are trying to juggle both being a mother and run a business. But I also think up until recently, Chamblee was still a very affordable place to start a business. And that's why I asked you about the government and what they could do to help our women entrepreneurs, because what scares me is that as we grow and develop, and I'm all for that growth and development, I love it, I welcome it, but we could find ourselves in a situation where some of these small, for lack of a better word, mom and pop type businesses where you just have one or two people in them are going to have trouble finding space because they're not going to be able to afford, the space that we have here. So I personally think we should shout to the rooftops that Chamblee is number one when it comes to women earning money.
Pretty cool stat.
It is a great stat. So, well, you've been listening to Between Two Trains. We are going to take a short commercial break while we hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk with our guest about her business as the CEO of Translation Station right after this.
If you recently got divorced, you may be wondering how to pick up all of the financial pieces. Is it time to make a new budget, new goals, and get a new game plan with your investments? What about the best way to save money on your taxes? Take control of your money future. Go to oxygenfinancial.net to schedule a complimentary meeting today. Go to oxygenfinancial.net to get started right now.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, an affiliate of Kestra Investment Services. Oxygen is not affiliated with Kestra.
Okay, welcome back to Between Two Trains. We are in the Chamblee Chamber of Commerce offices, and we are talking today with Lindsey Cambardella. Did I pronounce that right, Lindsey?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I always wonder if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Lindsey is the CEO of Translation Station, which is right here in downtown Chamblee. Lindsey, tell us a little bit about Translation Station. What exactly does Translation Station do?
Yeah, we are a full-service language company, and so the meat and potatoes of our business is providing on-site interpreting. So we have independent contractor interpreters who go on the site to interpret, whether it's a medical appointment, a legal setting, whether it's a court hearing or a deposition of some sort. We have a lot of interpreters going to school settings, mostly parent-teacher conferences. And then any kind of meeting you could imagine, we've got interpreters going to those. We also do written document translation, as well as over-the-phone interpreting. And really, there's a lot more options available, conference interpreting, things like that. But those are really the big ones that we're doing.
I could have used you in Peru a couple weeks ago.
Did you have to take a guide or anything when you were going up the mountain?
My Spanish is broken into words and phrases, and then when they start speaking fast, I just put my hands up.
As long as you know cerveza, right?
Cerveza. Por favor.
All right, so Lindsey, you didn't obviously start this business. It was started in 1998,
That's
correct?
Right. Yep.
By Phyllis Stallman. So tell us a little bit about Phyllis. She is still involved with the company, or she has stepped away? What's Phyllis's story?
So Phyllis, as you said, started it in 1998, and it was several years after losing her husband. She had a young son, and her department was downsized at her company. So she was now without a job and needed to make a decision about her financial future. And she had a few business ideas, one of which, of course, was the interpretation company. And she went with it. And she very courageously just got out there, started it in her basement. And over the last 20 years has grown it every year since then, and including outgrowing her basement to an office in Dorville, and then outgrowing that and coming to Chamblee a few years ago. When I met Phyllis about a year ago, she was beginning to really think seriously about retirement. Hopefully she doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but she just turned 75. And, you know, it was time to kind of pull back is how she was feeling. So she hired me so that she could. And at this point, we're in the transition. She's pulling out kind of slowly, making that an easy process for me and for her, I think.
That's always a tough thing. You know, I went through that myself in my financial planning practice when you have someone who has built this business up, and it's almost like a child to them. And so you're saying it's been pretty good. She's welcomed the transition and, you know, the desire to leave, because a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, they want to hang on.
Yes, she calls the business her baby, so
Yes.
It's definitely that relationship you're talking about. And I have to say she has done a really incredible job of giving me freedom to steer the ship, if you will, while at the same time providing me with enough guidance along the way to really do a good job. And I've got to give her lots and lots of credit. She's done a terrific job, I think.
Excellent. Now, going back to what you said the company does and whatnot, it sounds like a lot of it revolves around legal stuff. Is that like the majority of the work that y'all do is translating for legal situations?
I'd say we're fairly equal thirds between legal settings, medical settings, and school settings.
And so who would your primary customer be? Would it be an individual who needs, or is it going to be more of a company or, say, a municipality that says, hey, we need an interpreter or whatnot?
Sure.
Who's the actual customer?
Right. So all medical, legal, and school providers are federally obligated to provide interpreters when they have a client who needs them. So our clients are typically either school, county school system, county court system, or a health insurance company or hospital. Those are who our clients are. So the individuals are not coming to us. They're seeking out the assistance from the hospital, and then the hospital will reach out and schedule the interpreter.
I'm guessing Spanish is by far the dominant language y'all provide. What are, outside of that, what are sort of the obvious languages beyond that are
Sure. So
provided?
You're right. Spanish is definitely the big one, although I'll say that a lot of these systems, whether it's a healthcare system or otherwise, are now hiring on staff Spanish. So we've seen our Spanish requests go down slightly, but purely because they're hiring full-time Spanish interpreters. So that's been an interesting shift. But Korean, Mandarin, Arabic, Vietnamese, and it really depends on where you are. Our biggest client we do work for in 10 states, and so it depends on which state you're in, what languages are going to be the predominant outside of Spanish.
And as a business owner, you always have to, Van, you always have to think ahead, right? The markets can change, needs can change. Is there ever a concern that immigration may slow or second and third generations become fluent, eliminate need for translations?
Well,
we've had those ebbs and flows.
I can see that, but I'm thinking more so technology might affect her business.
That's a great point.
How does technology affect your business?
Yeah, that's actually where
can I on my Google app now? Isn't there a Google Translator app?
So technology is definitely the bigger fear for us in this industry, and yes, there are apps. However, they are very far at this point from creating accurate interpretations or translations.
Well, I would think you'd need to be very careful, especially with legal documents and legal stuff, that it, is not translating it and saying something that's going to really put someone in a bind.
Exactly. So both in the legal and for the same reasons in a medical scenario where you might be talking life or death, the accuracy of the interpretation is incredibly important. And so while we are seeing great strides in the technologies, I think it's going to be a fair amount of time. Exactly what that timeline looks like, nobody knows. But every industry conference we go to, it is definitely consuming most of the conversation because it's going to affect us significantly. And if we're not prepared for those changes and how to adapt with it, you could see our current model being obsolete fairly soon.
Sure. Well, you've been listening to Between Two Trains. We have Lindsey Cambardella with a translation station. Now, Lindsey, you started off as a lawyer. I think Jason alluded to this in the first section, and you made some comments about, your desire to make that change. Talk a little bit more about, making a change like that and saying, I'm going to go into the business world. What kind of stuff did you feel that you needed to learn to get to that point? Obviously I went to business school, I got a degree in business specifically to run my business. What caused you to sort of make that jump and say, hey, what do I got to learn now? I got all this legal knowledge, but what about the rest?
Yeah, and there's a lot to learn. And I think the biggest thing is being aware of what you don't know and being willing to rely on those around you. But I think personally, my biggest struggle was not that there was a financial or organizational or HR thing that I was afraid of not knowing how to do. For me, it was more of a confidence thing and being willing to take that leap. That was the bigger hurdle for me. I'm kind of an expert at this point, I feel like, in researching and analyzing and making sure that I'm prepared for something. So that personally was the bigger fear. And I must confess, when called an entrepreneur, I feel a little bit like a fraud because I never actually started the business that I intended to, because I ended up joining Phyllis's company. So, I'm not sure that I can take the credit for taking the leap.
Well, trust me, I've helped and worked with a lot of business owners through my financial planning practice. And if you are the CEO of the company, you can take credit for being an entrepreneur. Yes, Phyllis started this business, but now the reins are in your hands, and what you do with them from there is going to be up to you.
I just think it's such a cool and unique business model, and we've just had some interesting people on this show. And going back to what you just said, the founder of McDonald's, quote unquote, didn't found McDonald's. He took McDonald's and made it what it is. Right. So I think entrepreneurial spirit is it's a mindset, right? Taking something and making it better. Yeah. So all the credit to you.
Well, and please, hopefully Phyllis will be listening to this, and we'll hear, we applaud any of our women entrepreneurs. She obviously is one of them. And we've seen so many right here on Between Two Trains. And we've got actually a great lineup. We've got some other women entrepreneurs coming on the show later this year that are going to blow you away. So stay tuned for those. But I'd like to go ahead and move into our Hot or Not section. Lindsey, if you have ever heard our show, what we do is like to play this game called Hot or Not, where we will throw out a statement or a word to you, and we want to know your opinion on whether that's a hot thing or not such a hot thing.
I'm ready.
All right. So,
Van, you kick it off.
All right.
I'm a little bashful.
All right. So you are now, about 6-7 months into this new endeavor as CEO, right?
Yes.
How long has it been now?
November of 2017.
Okay. So about 7-8 months now. So, Translation Station has employees, So the question comes up from time to time with CEOs and business owners about bonuses for employees. So hot or not, giving employees bonuses?
Hot.
Hot?
I think, yes, I'd say hot. It's something that Phyllis actually implemented a long time ago. So there are annual bonuses that are given each year. And it's a real morale booster. I think the employees really like it. And there's a lot of longevity at the company. And I think that things like that, not just the bonuses, but things like that play a big role in that.
Let's go a step B on that hot or not. So are these incentive-based bonuses, or does she just give a bonus across the board to all the employees?
It goes to all the employees, but it is tied to profit. So the more profitable the company is, the bigger the bonus is for all the employees.
Yeah, that's a hot thing to me, too. I like profit-sharing bonuses more so than just straight across the board.
We love that at Keller Williams.
Yeah. Keller Williams gives profit sharing.
Profit sharing is a huge story that could tell about the company. That is one of the reasons that it's 150,000 agents worldwide, is because they're the only real estate company that ties profit sharing in. So I'm all about bonuses.
Yeah. My wife and son love their profit sharing bonuses. As a solo practitioner, they get it all. Okay, so back to hot or not, Jason. What we got?
I think Amazon's the hot topic, right? And I don't know. A lot of people have given me some mixed emotions on Amazon. So
you're talking about Amazon
coming
just
to
in
Atlanta.
general?
If
coming
it comes
to Atlanta, okay.
Yeah, so hot or not?
I'd have to say hot. I'm an Atlanta native, and I spent a lot of years just kind of thinking I'm here because my family's here. It's only been in the last 5 or so years that I've really been proud to be here and glad and excited about what's happening in Atlanta, and all of the growth that we've seen, explosive growth that we've seen, along with a lot of other cities, but Atlanta in particular, is really exciting to me, and I like the big city feel. So Amazon would obviously just ratchet that up a few notches, and it's going to take a lot of smart planning, but as long as we can keep our eye on the planning piece of it too, I think it would be great.
we're such a weird city because we lack this really strong feeling of pride historically, because everybody's from somewhere, and there's always been this feeling of the outside the perimeter against the inside the perimeter. And so there's emotions tied to something like Amazon that in a lot of places would be seen as a big, I think, positive, and then we view it as traffic maybe, right? We have such interesting dynamics here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sort of torn on that subject. I definitely do want it to come to Atlanta. I'm not so sure I want it to come to Chamblee, but I think it would be a big boon for the area when we already have so many other great industries and businesses, Fortune 500 companies, all based here in Atlanta. I want to circle back around. I like Jason's Amazon, but I want to circle back around to employees, because as an entrepreneur myself and helping business owners manage their business, this comes up all the time. We talked about bonuses for employees. What about vacations for employees?
We have a staff of 12, just to give you an insight, and probably about 500 independent contractors that actually do the interpreting and translating. But we have essentially two departments, and as long as their vacations are not overlapping, we are obviously very happy for them to take them. Every employee gets annual vacation and some personal days as well, and the vacation increases over time as they're with the company for longer. So definitely, we wish we could give more, but we are a small business, and we have to balance the needs of the business and the needs of the employees.
Yeah, that's usually what the conversation goes when I'm talking with my business owners, is balancing that. How much do you give? How do you give it? Making sure, as you said, they don't overlap.
You can thank the millennials for longer vacation expectation. One of my buddies, corporate recruiters, says that the expectation 20 years ago was 2 weeks. And now most of their folks, when they get hired, are starting with 3 weeks vacation. So I think that we're becoming a little more European when it comes to vacation expectations.
Yeah, you could be. I know when
millennials.
When I got my first full-time job in 1988, I got 0 vacation days until I had been with the company for 1 year.
Well,
So
that was before the iPhone, okay?
Oh, definitely before the iPhone. So, another hot or not that really I ask every single guest that we have on the show, just because I'm so passionate about this, and that is hot or not Chamblee.
Oh my gosh, burning hot.
Burning hot. I love it. Burning hot.
I grew up in Dunwoody, right down the street from here, and my first apartment was in Brookhaven, and this is just an area that feels very home to me, even though I've only lived here for about 2 years. It's familiar territory, and obviously it's blowing up. Everyone I talk to about being here, they're like, "Oh my gosh, articles about Chamblee every day," and I'm excited to be a part of it and watch it grow.
Yeah, I am too, and I think it's just going to get better and better. As you probably know, we've got a town center development that is going to be coming down the pike soon, and when that happens, watch out. So, Jason, any final hot or nots?
Yeah, just taking it all in, Van.
Yeah.
It's I'm tired of this rain. We're gonna get some nice days here in June coming up.
Don't be careful, because I have a feeling it might get to over 100 degrees before the summer's over. So, well, you've been listening to Between Two Trains, a business podcast where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and entrepreneurs of the North DeKalb area. Today, we've been talking with Lindsey Cambardella and with Translation Station. And Lindsey, any parting words? Now, if someone wants to come and get involved or needs your services, how do you suggest they get a hold of you or your employees?
Sure. So translationstation.com is our website. You can always email me, Lindsey, Lindsey, at translationstation.com. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and 770-234-9387. Good old phone.
I like that. She's actually been our first guest that actually has given out their phone number. I don't know why no one else has done that. That's excellent. So, Jason, any parting words for?
I'm interested, and I've just been sitting here thinking about how this could integrate into real estate when we deal with folks who have language barriers. And one of the things we've been talking about is adding an agent who's bilingual to our team. And maybe in the interim, we have definitely had some snafus with folks.
I have a feeling Lindsey knows a few people.
Yeah, so maybe that's where we can chat offline.
Yeah, we'd be happy to help.
Yeah.
There's a few solutions that I can think of right offhand.
Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate you. It's been a great show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsey, for coming on. Again, you've been listening to Between Two Trains, and stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we will have a couple of gentlemen from Piedmont Bank coming on our show. You can hear us on iTunes, at betweentwotrains.com, on SoundCloud, and on YouTube. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Jan Levy, Handy Entertainment.
Hi, this is Greg Burke with Remote Home Check.
Hi, this is Jeff Hill with Remote Home Check, and you've been listening to Between Two Trains.